Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Greg Furman, market analyst here at TraderPlanet.com, and this is the Forex market outlook for the week of April the 26th, 2010. Now to get started this week, we're going to start where we always do at the US dollar index. Interesting close to the week to say the least. The US dollar very strong on Friday morning, but then softening towards the end of the day. We've still closed at 81.35. Now again, what we want to notice here, this triple EMA crossover that I talked about last week has now taken place. The US dollar index making this crossover. Now again, what we're looking for is for this to continue higher. We need to break above this 82.20 area to really get this thing moving. Not sure if we're going to get that just yet, but based around this triple EMA crossover, it certainly suggests that going into the beginning of the week we may be somewhat soft because of the close, but we then could gain a significant momentum to get this thing moving. So using a momentum indicator, let's have a look at we've got the triple EMA up, excuse me. Let's look at the predicted TSI. Now that's a true strength indicator. We can see here that it's sitting at the zero line. Our trigger is crossed to the upside, is now turning lower, but there is no crossover to the downside. Now using an indicator like this, again, that's only on the Vantage Point software, that's the reason I prefer to use this particular program in my presentations, is because this true strength indicator is going to tell me what the likely direction of this thing is going to be. So right now, sitting at the zero line, we've got a crossover to the upside. We've got probably some profit taking going in to finish the week. This suggests that the US dollar index is going to continue higher. Now we're also going to use an overbought and oversold signal here to see what that's telling us. We've hit the overbought level. We're starting to move down a little lower, but again, plenty of room to extend. So that's with the outlook on the US dollar. We've got our triple EMA crossover. Now let's have a look at the short, the medium, and the long-term crossovers here. We can see that the short-term crossover here is to the upside. That's what we want to see, that this in the short, the medium, and the long term, that the crossovers from Vantage Point are going to continue to tell us the direction of the dollar. Now going into our medium-term crossover, let's have a look at that. We can see with the medium-term crossover, we've got a very clear buy signal here. That's the crossing over this trigger. Now again, we're going to go in and have a look at the long-term crossover from Vantage Point on the dollar. Now again, the long-term crossover also pointing higher. So we have the short, the medium, the long, and the triple EMA crossover all showing it going higher. And we have our true strength indicator also supporting the move higher. Now what we're going to do is we're going to click on the medium term here, and we're going to hit apply to all. Now what we're going to do this week, we're going to put the US dollar index up against some of the major equity and commodity futures to see if we can see a correlation in the medium term on all of these things. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the New York light sweet crude in comparison to the US dollar index. Now we can see that with the medium term crossover, this will be identified in each one of these presentations. Looking at light sweet crude in the medium term, we're actually still on the downward side, even though we have this close at the 85.12 level. Now this is a point of interest because again, we can see the correlation here where actually the US dollar index and crude oil, believe it or not, we're trading together. Usually they trade in opposite directions. Crude goes up, the US dollar goes down. This is what we've known for a great period of time, probably a couple of years now. We can see that these correlations are starting to break down, which is actually a good thing. Crude oil can trade on its own merits, and the US dollar index can trade on its own merits. That's what I would prefer to see the market. So with this, we have a very clean buy signal from the US dollar. In the medium term, in crude oil, we do not. Now looking at gold contracts, point of interest here in the medium term, again, the US dollar index with the buy signal, the crude oil in the medium term, we don't have that. So again, it's trying to make this crossover. We actually did have a decent close at 11.53. That's still pretty strong. But again, in the medium term outlook here, so we don't want to go too long and we don't want to go too short for this presentation because it's the Forex market outlook for the week is more of a weekly presentation to give an overview of what to expect from the market. This suggests that gold is not going to hold on to its gains. This medium term crossover from Vantage Point is a very powerful indicator, and it can be a good early indicator as to what the likely direction going forward is going to be. So again, this correlation starting to break down a little bit. Now gold is actually, you know, moving lower. US dollar continues to move higher. Now let's have a look at the S&P 500. We're going to use the S&P 500 as a broader gauge of the other equity markets, because basically there's a very high correlation to the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, the Nikkei, the Hang Seng. Huge correlation there. So looking at this, what I'm sure everybody remembers over the last several months, what I've talked about is what I would like to see is the S&P 500 and the other major indices moving higher, while the US dollar moves higher also. Now specifically, I would like to see the S&P 500 and the US dollar index climb higher together. Now again, the S&P is running a little bit flat, but we have a very clear buy signal here on this S&P 500. We've had a very good close for the week here at 12.1225. I've stated for months now that this thing was going to break the 1200 mark. We're going to continue to move higher. My view is the U.S. stocks are clearly undervalued. I remain of that position. Nothing has changed. Now, you know, we are getting a little bit flat on this here, but again, I believe we have plenty of room to extend on this. Now, you know, looking at those are some of the major equity and commodity futures that we want to look at when trading this, you know, when we're trading in Forex. But this also helps out for you equity traders that are looking to get into the Forex market. You can see how this Vantage Point product can be used for multiple markets, but in every market's traded the same way. So again, that's how we're looking at to start the week with our